So we've got 4 discussion topics today. We're going through.
I'm excited.
Me too. Me too. Short, sweet, and some good high value topics. Recent-ish news. We're trying to do this about once a month. So like some of the things that we cover are going to be really recent. Some of the things we cover are going to be from the beginning of the month, and then some of the stuff we're touching on here was actually from like end of 2023. Because we're still early enough in the year that there's like some relevant topics.
Doesn't even feel like we're at the end of January already, but we are. But
yeah,
there were some great,
fast.
and we weren't doing a whole bunch of streaming through the Christmas break because we deserved to have a break. Yeah. So now we're doing it now. So
our topics: Google is getting worse as it loses its fight against search engine spam. Truly sorry, Fujitsu says it will compensate UK postal workers who were ruined by its software. Google quietly updates Chrome's incognito warning in wake of a tracking lawsuit. And Canada organizations face barriers to digital adoption and transformations, from a report by Deloitte.
Deloitte.
So we're going to kick off with Google is getting worse as it loses its fight against search engine spam.
Yes.
I'm going to follow the same format we used last time we streamed. So I'm going to read through the topic, and then we've got some actual discussion points that we can go through related to the overall topic. I will go ahead and share screen and read through this real quick, and then we can talk about it. Google is getting worse as it loses its fight against search engine spam. These days, search engine results are filled with spam content, according to a new paper from a team of researchers in Germany. The researchers searched for product reviews that offer tests and purchase recommendations. They spent a year analyzing almost 7,400 of these queries on 3 search engines: Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo. Their baseline finding was that search engines have significant problems with affiliate links, paid-for links that refer a customer to a seller. While the number of product reviews online that contain affiliate links isn't huge, the researchers said these reviews are overrepresented in search engine results. Affiliates are more likely to design web pages to optimize their rankings, as opposed to investing in higher quality product reviews. Though web pages that have more affiliate links and are more optimized are more likely to come up in search results, on average, they also show signs of lower text quality. The researchers said, and as content generated by AI continues to flood the internet, the researchers said search engine results are likely to get worse. A spokesperson for Google told Business Insider in an email that the study looked narrowly at product review content, so it doesn't reflect the overall quality of Google search. The study's researchers said they believe the issue deserves more attention, but that for now, they don't see an obvious solution. So our first discussion topic related to this article is, what are affiliate links and how do they work? Do you want to walk us through that more generally?
So I have a brief understanding about how affiliate links work, but essentially it's a link that I could provide if I'm a manufacturer of a product or good or a company, and I have an audience of people that want to advertise on my behalf. So we can call those people influencers, we can call those people salespeople, we can call them whatever we want. I'm going to give them a link so that I can track what sales or what attention they're able to capture through that link, and then they can take that link and go into their own social media channels on their website or wherever else they want to broadcast that out, and that affiliate link will then direct them back so that they can purchase a product, but the attribution will actually be attributed to whoever's actually influencing the customer in the first place. So that's essentially how they work. Very common in social media, very common online. It's just it's a tool to allow businesses to track where the sale came from a source. That's essentially how they work. You've probably bought something through an affiliate link.
I see affiliate links all the time. I watch a ton of tech shows on YouTube.
Yes.
And every single one of them, regardless of whether it's a really brand-focused tech show or like a really information-focused tech show, because there's like an obvious split depending on the kind of content you're consuming. Yeah. Pretty much all of them include affiliate links in their descriptions to any of the products that they're talking about in their shows, because they'd just be leaving money on the table if they didn't.
Yeah. if you're having a harder time understanding this, it's essentially, if we were to take it into a traditional concept, it would be like a coupon code that you'd have on a coupon saying like, hey, here's the coupon for butter, and you would say like coupon 4040. And that coupon code is a tracking code so that when they get redeemed, I can see where all my coupons come from. And this store generated this, and this store generated this. Very common in radio, very common online. They're all over the place. Whether it's called an affiliate link or not, that's just the attribution model. That's how they work. There are good and bad things about them. It's hard to control your brand when you give out an affiliate link and have a million affiliates follow the rules.
Yep.
Around what's brand safe and what you can say, and if there's embellishment or flat out lying, or if they're underselling you, or if they're actually
at the same time, like if you're doing influencer marketing, you should be using an affiliate link to track the results of that marketing.
You have to,
because like without those metrics, you have no idea if you're throwing money at something that's actually going to bring you revenue, or just something that seems really impressive but doesn't actually move the needle.
So typically with affiliate marketing, a brand is paying the influencer or the person who's generating the awareness. There's a few models. You can be paying a flat fee plus a commission on every sale. You could be doing a flat fee only. You could be doing commission only, so they're only getting paid when the product gets sold, or any combination of those. So typically there is a revenue model where the more sales get generated through your affiliate link, the more reimbursement goes back to the influencer.
Yeah. Now that said, I think it's worth noting that, like you mentioned, affiliate, like influencers doing it on commission only. That's only going to be really small influencers. Correct. Any of the larger influencers out there
expecting a flat fee as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think really recently, Mr. Beast famously told Elon Musk he couldn't afford him because Musk was trying to convince him to post his content directly on Twitter. And when you look at the monetization model, even with the limited traction that you get posting a link to a YouTube video on a tweet, the views he'll get on that video through that tweet that links to the video are going to pay him more through YouTube's monetization than Twitter's monetization would pay him if he posted directly on the platform.
You mean X, formerly known as Twitter?
Yes, X, formerly known as Twitter.
Have to say that. But yes, and that article's all over the place online. You can find that out. And obviously, telling the richest guy in the world you can't afford me is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. So speaking of articles, this one that we're reading through came through Business Insider. The link is in our streaming document. I'll try to make sure that gets shared with the video when this actually launches on our YouTube channel.
So I will ask the next question. I'll frame it to you. So the question is, what was Aron right about AI generated content? But I want to take a step back and actually ask Aron, what was your position on AI generated content a few months ago? And then we'll answer if you were right or not. So what was your position?
So I've been saying this for a long time. I've said this on our YouTube channel. I've said this in client meetings. I'm pretty sure I even said this in the last stream that we did. I really think search engines are going to have to crack down on AI-generated content in order to keep the platforms healthy. So when all of this large language model came out, like all the hype came out, and people started saying, oh, we're going to lay off all of our writers and just use AI to write all of our online content, I've been saying from day one, there's no way that's sustainable. Because there is software out there that can, with limited accuracy, detect whether content was written by AI.
And that's only going to get better. That technology is only going to advance as fast as everything else. So
that's my expectation. And I believe that the search engines are going to recognize the low value of all of the generic AI content that's being produced and start penalizing search results that are generated by AI. And
I see some of that in the circles I run with in LinkedIn. I see other people calling other people out, and they're like in the comments going, this was purely generated by AI, please stop.
Yeah.
And like there's obviously no proof of that, but if you were to reread the content again, you'd go, yeah, there's actually no substance here at all. This wasn't written by someone who has a clear understanding of what's going on. And it's actually it makes me giggle a little bit because it's like it's like you thought you were doing something good, but actually you've got cake on your face now, like or egg on your face, cake on your face. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Sure.
Yeah, but
so AI. I've been saying from the beginning, search engines are going to have to recognize that all this AI content is making the platforms worse. And here is this article coming out from these German researchers, and one of their findings, I'll highlight it in the article. Content generated by AI continues to flood the internet. Search engine results are likely to get worse. So, that's not 100% proof that I was right, because obviously the search engines haven't cracked down yet. But if they want to respond to these findings and try to turn this thing around, they're going to need to address what all of this low quality AI driven content is doing to the internet.
And we can really sum that up to the reason why Google is the power it is because when you turn to it, there's typically a quality answer that comes back. So you keep going back to Google or back to the search engine you choose, because when you ask it something or you make a query, the information it's returning to you has value. If you stop getting that value from the platform, you'll stop using it, and that's the last thing they want. So they're going to have to solve that problem if that gets worse.
So going back to the overall quality of search results, Google's spokesperson said that the study looked narrowly at product review content and didn't reflect the overall quality of Google search. Now, we don't have a study to back us up, but anecdotally, how would you say the overall quality of Google search is in 2023, 2024?
It's interesting. I've got like obviously a fairly political answer there where it depends on what you're looking for. There are some areas of the internet that haven't been as polluted or diluted as others. So if it's easy for someone to inject AI content into it and the audience isn't super technical or gullible or super educated on the topic that they're looking for, there's going to be more blatant use of tools to build content on those topics.
I'm not even necessarily talking about in terms of AI. I mean in terms of like, when you sit down at your computer, it could be anything. You could be looking for something work related. You could be looking for a manual for a power tool that you're using in your garage. It could be anything. When you actually go to do a Google search to find that information,
It's gotten worse. It's typically, if I was looking for a manual, I'd expect to see like a PDF download and like the first couple of links from the manufacturer directly related to the search, and now you're kind of getting a whole bunch of like story.
Yeah.
This is a bad example, but one where if you're looking for a recipe, the recipe's actually at the bottom of the article, and 7/8 of the article is a story about how the chicken soup it got formulated in the mountains by someone's grandmother 100 years ago. It's like, just tell me the recipe for chicken soup. That's more. There's more of that now.
And so this has been true for me for a long time, and I suspect you've had a similar experience. Whenever I want to find like actual answers to questions online, where I'm looking for like real world input or advice on something, I just append Reddit to the end of whatever I'm searching for.
You go to Reddit. So I actually haven't, because I'm a fairly avid Reddit user now too, and I don't see nearly as much AI generated content in Reddit.
Oh, well, you got plenty of AI and plenty of bots.
But yes, the subreddits I'm on are less infected with that. It's way less polished. It's more people talk.
I don't know, man. I don't think there's any subreddits that aren't affected by it, especially with the changes we got in 2023, with how much the platform has limited the tools through the API that fight bots and fight spammy content. Pretty much every thread I go through, there's bot comments. There's people calling out other comments as being bots. Like, it's very difficult anymore to sift through and find what's accurate. But even with all that being the case, I expect a higher likelihood of getting real opinions on a social platform like Reddit than through a blog post, for example.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Right? So like if I'm looking for the best video editing software in 2024, and I do a Google search, I expect to find a ton of blog posts telling me all about like generic canned talking points that people got from the companies that actually produce the software.
With probably a bunch of affiliate links in them.
Yep. Whereas if I just add Reddit to the end of my search result, I'll get 5, 6, 7, 8 threads of people talking about what software they like and why. And often I don't get a lot further ahead because people have such wildly varying opinions. But at the very least, that gives me...
There's less monetization on those opinions too.
Well, that's just it, right? So like, you know, with a little bit of a trained eye and trying to look for comments that seem like they're obviously shilling or obviously a bot, the fact that people are able to respond very directly to the comments as well makes it easier to verify which ones are legitimate. Reading several threads like that makes it easier for me to get somewhat of a consensus as to what your average person in whatever field or even in like layman's terms is the best solution.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
there's not a clear motive on why they'd be sharing their opinion because they have nothing to gain.
Right.
Which tends to lean on, I can tend to understand why there would be a more honest opinion rather than a dishonest opinion that's financially motivated.
And it didn't always used to be this way. Like you used to be able to just type into Google whatever you were looking for and find really relevant information, whether it was on a blog or a forum post.
Correct, yeah.
Most things would float to the top of search, and now that's just really not the case the same way it used to be. So, all these points being true, what kind of content should businesses publish?
Oh, there's lots of kinds. Typically we're trying to find like the highest value content that a business could produce would be the things that are about their business that they know people are looking for. So like the evergreen content. If I know that I've got a subset of audience that is asking questions, that is looking for information, I'm going to try and produce high value content to answer those questions that I know that are going to be asked over and over and over again, that I'm not going to count on my audience just finding through my website or something like that. I'm going to deep dive. So for example, types of content they should publish: video tutorials, so someone can watch and learn the instructions on how to do something. So recently I had to change a spark plug in a snowblower, and I found a video online. Instead of fighting with it, it was done in about 6 minutes. I watched the video and it was done. So the video content that went out, and there was some matching text and things like that, that was very handy. It also had the PDF download for parts and things like that. So all of the hard information that someone's going to need to find, parts, manuals, things. So the things that are going to stay true for the longest. Any kind of how-to content specific to the business or specific to the things you're making, very important. So video is, I was going to say video, if I was going to choose one, it would be publishing video content around how to get the best results of your product or service. I would say off the hop. There's lots.
And with those points in mind, so okay, you've got an idea of what kind of content your visitors are going to get the most value out of. How should businesses be weighing the value of that content from a consumer's perspective versus the search engine optimization of that content? What should they be prioritizing?
Yeah, so it's a teeter-totter. Like, you got to keep the user happy because there's where you're getting your dollars from, and then you've got to obviously keep a search engine happy because we want the users to be able to find the content. So like, it's a balance. So like, yes, I want to use the keywords and things that people are searching for, but I also want to explain those keywords and bring those into like the layman's terms so that everyone, not just an expert, understands them. Creates a more inclusive environment. Yeah, it makes you sound like you should be able to explain it in common English and not, or common language, and not just at the highest level. So creating that environment. So like understanding what people are looking for, understanding what the top search terms, understanding what questions are being asked, understanding when, how, who is asking them. So you still have to understand the technical component of like, will this content even be searchable or findable? And then that should help guide the content strategy as well, going, if no one's looking for it, I'm not going to build it.
Yep.
And then how do I build it in the most user-friendly manner to keep that customer happy?
There's some like
balance.
real basic stuff you can do to improve this. If you're publishing video content, include relevant text on the same pages as your videos. and that's going to make it much easier for them to rank in search.
Yes.
The video content is probably what your customers are tuning in for, but that text content are how the search engines are going to interpret what that content is about in order to serve it to people through search.
Yes.
Before we move on to our next topic, do you have any final thoughts or questions that you want to pose around the current state of search engines?
I want to talk about that one more bit, which was not building bridges to nowhere, which is don't just be creating content for the sake of creating content. If you don't have a purpose for it, a lot of people fall into the trap of like, hey, well, I need to do social media, or I need to do blog writing, or I need to do something like that. And I don't want you to feel the need to do something just for the sake of doing it. It has to have a purpose. And then that goes back to help solving the problem where there's just not a big bloated internet full of emptiness that is like, what is this actually? Who am I helping with this?
Yeah.
It could devalue your brand. It's not actually going to solve anyone's problem. It's a waste of your time. How do you recover an ROI on that? And that kind of ties into all of them. It's why am I doing this in the first place? Just because I can generate an AI blog very quickly, why am I doing it? Why would Google want to feature it? How would I monetize it even if I did have an affiliate link? What am I actually doing? What purpose of the content is there? So
that's a really good point. So that comes down to just user interface and user experience on your website. When you actually put those pages and those articles out there, do you have a conversion mechanism on those pages? When someone actually reaches that content, is there a clear way for them to take the next step to interact with your brand on a deeper level? If you're not thinking about these things before you start to put out content, you can waste a lot of time and money, as you said, building bridges to nowhere that don't actually move the needle for your business.
And I think that's what Google's going to end up having to do too, going, hey, there's a lot of content on the platform, or the same thing what you'd have on your website going, but why is it here?
Yeah.
What value? So Google would view it in the terms of their customer. Why would someone come to the Google search platform to look for information that has no value? And it would be the same for your website. It's going to be the same for it'd be the same thing if you had a retail brick and mortar.
Do you want to introduce us to our next article?
I think that's a good. Do you have any? You're done with that one too?
With that one, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So you're going to want to drag the screen document onto your other monitor.
Yes. Here we are.
Because then I believe.
Here we are. Right. I'm going to get all of these words wrong. Because
That's okay.
Fujitsu.
Oh,
Fujitsu. Hey.
Oh, you might not be able to do this, actually. Because
Okay, that's okay. Well, why don't you put it on yours, and I'll just read it off of mine, and then it'll be like...
Yeah.
It'll be like...
So that looks like to be a limitation of the multi-monitor setup that you've got going on.
Right.
It's not able to capture your display correctly because there's too many of them.
So...
We'll just go without your screen capture.
Yeah, that's okay.
And
That's
we'll
okay.
do it.
It's the same difference. You're going to pretend what you're viewing is on my monitor, but really it's on Aaron's, and that doesn't really matter to you. Great, the next topic. I'm going to read you some headlines. This is infuriating because when I read this, I was like, oh my God.
Was the Stream Dock the first you heard of this?
No, it wasn't. Reddit, of course, introduced me to this, but I didn't really get into it until later because I read some headlines, and then, life happens, and then we came back. So, truly sorry. Fujitsu says it will compensate UK postal workers who are ruined by its software. So if I mess up any of these words, I apologize. Japanese technology company Fujitsu has the moral obligation to compensate the victims of Britain's post-office scandal, the boss of its European arm said Tuesday. And this was, what Tuesday was this?
This would have been a little while ago.
Just want to make sure I get that. Right
Bring
here.
up the original article on CNN. This was published January 17th.
So this was
Tuesday.
it was so mid-January. Between 1999 and 2015, which is a huge spread, scores of people who ran branches of the government-owned post office were falsely accused of theft and fraud after glitches in Fujitsu's Horizon IT system incorrectly showed that money, often many thousands of pounds, had gone missing from branch accounts. Out of those so-called postmasters, 700 were convicted of criminal offenses. A number spent time in prison, which is wild. And some were left so distressed they took their own lives, according to their family members. We did have bugs and errors in the system, and we did help the post office in their prosecutions of the sub-postmasters. Peter Patterson, Fujitsu's director for Europe, said Tuesday, "For that we are truly sorry." So far, more than 2,700 current or former sub-postmasters have received financial compensation through a government scheme, though many say that what they received isn't enough. And many say Fujitsu, a firm worth close to $29 billion, or I assume that's billion pounds or dollars, and which is still a major supplier to the UK government, should also be on the hook to compensate victims.
It's probably US dollars.
Probably US dollars, okay. US dollars, so I'm just saying
international court, usually people use US.
I think there is a moral obligation for the company to contribute, Patterson told UK lawmakers during a public hearing. We have a part to play and to contribute to the redress fund to the redress fund of the sub-postmasters. Wild story.
Yeah.
So like in plain English, there was a software glitch. People are thinking postmasters or the directors of the leaders of these post offices are stealing money out of the system when really it is the software itself.
Misreported.
Woo! Infuriating. Like that would
Ruin lives over bugs.
over a software bug. So
Yeah.
incredible story. We will again we'll include that, and that was from CNN. We'll include that link in for you to actually read the full article as well. So wild. Where do you heart goes out to them? Like, what do you even do? Like, you spend time in jail. I know this is there, but like, yeah, this is a serious issue.
Oh, and for the people who lost loved ones over this, like you can't compensate for
How
it.
do you put $1 to that? Yeah, and you'd be very mad at the government. You'd be very mad at the software. You'd be very mad at the prosecutors and everything. So, the first question there is, I would be looking at, and this is the first question: is how should businesses, and I mean businesses because we're talking to business owners, but in this case too, how should the businesses and governments evaluate software? How should users evaluate software before they decide to implement a new system or take something on?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't done right here. There was something wrong. Something is amiss.
It's tough to say where the problems even started.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because like software bugs can be there from the start. They can develop over time.
What was the state of software in 1999?
That's a great question. Because this software was in use for a long
1999 to
time.
2015, 16 years.
Like, how could they have even had the tools back then to evaluate this software in terms of accuracy?
That's Windows
especially
98.
at such a large scale.
At a large scale, that's 70. So yeah, well, 2,700 current or former sub-postmasters across UK, which is, who knows how many different post offices those people worked at, which is wild. And then I'm just thinking, and I have no idea, so I'll say some brand names, but I have no idea if these people are involved. Think about where, to put some scale in this, the problem started in 1999. So think about the state of computing power when you had Windows 98 on your computer and what you could do with a Windows 98 computer at that time.
Oh yeah.
Like, there was barely internet in most households.
I think we were still on
Period.
dial-up.
It would have been internet, but it would have been dial-up. So there was no streaming.
Yep.
There was no,
There were no online video tutorials.
none of that. You were still probably I was going to the library at that time. So like if you were trying to find information on things, when was, I mean, I'd have to look this up. When was the first search engine, when did the first engine really end up taking off?
Let's pull that up.
Like we'll
ask Google. We'll see how.
Did Google hit?
Google. Well, it wouldn't have even been Google.
No, it would have been.
It would have been like Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves.
So Google became popular in 2000.
So this predates when Google was popular, not when it existed, but popular.
Yeah. Well, and then when did it launch?
Yeah. When did it launch in the UK?
98. September 4th, 1998.
Menlo Park.
Yeah, that's when the company was founded.
And then when did it actually hit UK?
That's a good question.
When was it available? Because it was available in the States, obviously. When was it available in the UK?
We're getting way too deep in the rabbit hole now. I'm not going to find this.
That's it. So just trying to paint a picture. So like way back when, you know, the tools that someone would have been using to validate software back in 1999 didn't exist. It wasn't even a thing.
Yep.
We have some cool tools today to do that. There's some cool technologies to do that. There's a whole bunch of online information. There's like entire subgroups of people and training and education that allow, like how many businesses had CIOs?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't running a business in '99. I'm sure it was a thing.
I'm sure it was.
Been dealing with more primitive technology.
Yeah, you were dealing with like fax.
In terms of how businesses evaluate software, like I say, they're great tools now. There's government initiatives as well to support it.
There's many government initiatives.
CDAP is a great one, which we'll touch on in a little bit more detail later in the stream. We've always evaluated software in terms of customer service more than anything else, customer support.
Big time.
Like, what do you get out of the software provider before you even become a customer? Even if it's a little more money, I would always rather utilize a software that comes with excellent documentation, first-class support, video resources, sales teams that are willing to book a demo before I actually utilize the software. It's
software that comes with part setup and integration and configuration, the transparency around pricing, the transparency around the community at large. I know that there's it's hard to have a big community of support when you're new, so like new software is harder to evaluate than stuff that's been on the market for a while, so time plays a factor. There's more than meets the eye when it comes to like, hey, they're going to make everything look very glitzy and glamoury and sophisticated and smooth and easy and potentially cheap and fast to get you in the door, and you need to take a more critical look before you decide to put your credit card information in or decide to make a big fundamental decision on how the business should run for sure.
Absolutely. So how should businesses evaluate software? You should look at what you get for free out of the software provider. Are they providing phenomenal resources? Do they have great support? You should look at pricing. Is the software a reasonable scale for where your company's at? You should look at scalability. Is the software something that can grow with your company? And you should look at features and ease of use. Is the software going to do everything that you need it to do? And is it going to be easy for you to implement? Or is it going to be a year-long battle requiring third-party implementers who are going to charge you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get off the ground with the software? These are all things that we look really closely at when we're recommending software solutions to the businesses that we look at. And it's something that, as a business owner, you need to be paying a lot of attention to as you're selecting software. Because what we see all the time is businesses choosing software, I don't want to say at random, but based on either what they're familiar with, what a friend recommended, what one of their employees was familiar with, and they end up with a tech stack that hasn't had scalability incorporated into the decision-making process from the beginning, hasn't been built to work cohesively as a whole unit, and ultimately ends up costing a lot to upgrade year after year after year in order to try to build in a more planned out tech infrastructure after the fact rather than doing it from the beginning.
There's one word in there that I want you to explain for some of the more non-technical viewers, which is, what is a tech stack?
It's just the list of technology that you use in your company.
So it's very common now to relate to something that probably everyone can understand is, if you're going to go buy a brand new vehicle, right on the sheet that's on the window, it will show you total cost of ownership. It's going to show you the running costs, fuel efficiency, repairs, how the average lifespan of the vehicle. It's going to show you how much this vehicle is going to impact you financially. And most people, when they're approaching systems and software in their business, they say, well, it's only going to cost me $200 a year. And that is the wrong way to look at it, because it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more in time So if your time is free, then yes, that's right. And then there's got to be some budget associated with that for help or configuration or customization, because that total cost of ownership might be $200 a year in software expense and $10,000 a year in support, or it could be $3,000 a year in software expense and only $1,000 a year in support, and you're far better spending more on a better piece of software to get out of the gate, even if that initial sticker shock is, oh my goodness, but the actual cost of ownership is far less and way less headaches.
That can go the other way as well. This is something that a lot of business owners undervalue, is if a piece of software is going to save you significant time in your business, the cost to own that software might be significant, but might be dwarfed by the savings you make operationally by streamlining your operation in other ways.
Big time. So factoring that in has to be at the first and foremost. And if you're not doing that, this does take time. This is not like an evaluating a piece of software or making a big change in your business. It's work. I don't want to undervalue it, saying, oh yeah, you're just going to be able to do this in an afternoon. You're going to have to understand your finance. There's more. There's a bigger picture, especially if that software is critical or like fundamental in actually running your operation. If it's something that's standalone and things like that, then it's fine. But the more time you end up planning this out or getting help on it or getting a second opinion, if you're getting advice, I would also say you need to take a keen eye on who you're getting advice from.
Yeah.
Because great, if it's your friend and they've maybe used the software a little bit, sure, maybe they're trustworthy, but are they actually a good person to get that knowledge from? Maybe.
And if they work in a similar industry to you,
maybe,
and they've been using the same bookkeeping software or POS software or CRM for 10 years and they're really happy with it, those opinions are actually really valuable.
They are. Ask them how much time that they can dedicate to you to getting you up to speed to the same point they are, and they're probably going to have a lot less time. So
sure.
So you still need to have the support.
Even as someone who researches and recommends technology, I would still go to an expert in that field to assess whether a piece of technology is going to do the best job, rather than an expert in technology.
I completely agree. They're not going to be interested in reading the reputation to try and make the sale from that perspective. They're going to tell you.
Right. Well, and they're just going to be better qualified to assess whether the software is going to do a good job. If I want to know the best customer relationship manager for contractors, a contractor is going to understand their client relationships a lot better than someone who sells software for a living.
Big time.
It's because it's a completely different business model. Now, if you're working with a software provider who specializes in those industries, they might have better information than someone who is working in the industry and only familiar with one or two pieces of software.
Maybe.
But either way, as close as you can get to the people that are on the ground interacting with the software, usually you're going to get better information.
Big time.
So once the software is already settled and you've been using it for a while, what do you do if you notice a discrepancy in your data? So you're our chief financial officer. You do a lot of internal bookkeeping preparation.
Yeah.
So in terms of the financial side of 2H Media, you're managing our QuickBooks day to day. You're looking at the invoicing. You're balancing that against the bank accounts. What would you do?
So not all data is equal right off the hop. If I can't get my balance sheet to balance, there's a big problem. There's a big issue. It's where did the money go? So if it's a data point around money, I treat that with more importance. If it's a data point around, hey, it said I had a meeting booked, but I don't have a meeting booked, or if it shows me that I've got a couple of there's some traffic, but I don't have some website traffic. Okay, it's is this going to get me in trouble with the CRA? No, so it's going to be a little bit less important, but I wouldn't let it go. I would bring it up, and then I would start testing some things out, and then that's where I would lean on someone else in the organization to say, here's what I'm seeing. I'm going to bring that issue to someone else's attention. How can we actually test to see if this is actually working right? Can we put something in place to either a redundancy in place to say, hey, I need to make sure that the meeting that's going through Calendly per se is actually making it to my calendar. I don't want to be losing appointments. That data is pretty important. I don't want to be letting people down. So there would be some testing involved. And then there would have to be some kind of redundancy if it was like a very critical piece. And that normally means you got to get someone else from the company involved. That wouldn't be like hey, the financial officer is going to go make sure the calendar integration's right. They're going to go, I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey, Aron, this is my issue. Am I going crazy?
Yeah.
This is what I think I've got. And I'm going to record that information in a way that I'm able to relay it. And on the other end, what I would expect Aron to say is not, hey, have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in? No, he's going to say, okay, great. Let's actually go take a look at this. What was supposed to happen? What was the desired outcome? What was the input? Maybe there is a data leak. Maybe there is something not happening. Maybe there's...
And if it's financial related, we're going to go look at other sources of truth.
100%.
We're going to look at the bank accounts.
Yep.
We're going to talk to our bookkeeper.
Yeah, we're going to go into our financial software. We're going to go into the bank statements. We're going to go to the credit card. We're going to go to a whole bunch of things.
The premise is something in our financial software looks wrong.
Oh, if it was in the financial, yeah, right.
So like,
hey, where did
yes?
Yeah.
We're going to go looking for the money.
Yeah, you got to go looking for it. Which is what should have happened here in this case too, because it's like, where did the money go? People got accused of stealing. Where did the money go?
I don't want to speculate because I shouldn't
either. Yes.
I don't understand the details of what happened in the UK post offices or with the Fujitsu software. It seems really bizarre to me that this issue ever arose, because it's not where did the money go, it's where did the money come from? Because if the software is saying that people are taking money out of the system somewhere, that money had to have gone into the system somewhere as well, right? So if it's still there, then great. It should be really easy to account for it because the money is still there. And if it's not there and was never there in the first place, then I would think that you could also verify that, because you should be seeing money coming into the system that never happened.
Yeah, this is what we need testing too. So like, was there an appointment actually booked? You're going to check on both sides. You're going to say like, did the data not go, or was the data never actually there in the first place?
And this is where, like, I don't want to speculate because I don't know what your systems are like.
We shouldn't. Yeah.
For our systems, if we were showing there should be more money than there is, we could look at all of the places where our money can go out, and we'd look for something that doesn't make sense. We'd say, is there money leaving the bank account because one of us went to an ATM and took money out without saying anything? Was there an expense we weren't expecting? That'll show up on a credit card statement or in the bank account itself. And then on the other side of it would be, where did the money
deposited?
Yeah, did we actually
get paid? Was there? And then on top of that, there's a frequency thing. So it's easier to catch things as when they're relevant. If a year goes by and you've got a mountain of data in between when the actual issue arose, so like there's going to be some problems. So if you are experiencing, what should you do if you actually have a discrepancy? It's going to be hard. The further back in time you go, it's going to be harder because things in the environment will have changed. Different systems, maybe you've done something in the system that now it's talking and now it's not talking. Maybe something was unplugged. Maybe there was an outage. Maybe there was some dedicated service that your software was doing. There's going to be all kinds of things. So if you catch it close to as real time as possible, it's way easier to troubleshoot than, hey, what did we, like most people don't know what they ate for breakfast last Tuesday, let alone where did the data go from 5 years ago.
So in short, if you notice a discrepancy in your data, look for sources of truth that you can confirm and work backwards from those to look for where the discrepancy occurred.
The other thing is, you should really know what you need to be looking for on the regular. You should be looking at you need to understand what data is important to you, because that is the first thing that you should be monitoring. You can't monitor everything. There's too much, your business collects too many things. So you really need to narrow down what is the most important thing. Cost of goods sold, labor, materials coming in and out, inventory, like the management of inventory, anything financially related to cash, sales, the health of your customers, things like that, the health score of your customers. those things should be on a dashboard presented to you. There's plenty of companies that we go into and they've got dashboards set up in their office, they're on TVs, and then the first thing you're doing when you're walking in the office is, from a leadership standpoint, you're looking at the numbers, and from right off the hop you're going to get a very quick idea of, oh, that number does not smell right, because I know it's got to be between X and Y because of all of the previous. So if you're not paying attention to it, things are going to get past you. If it's in front of you every day, you're going to be more resilient. You're going to have access to it. So, and I would dedicate time. Aron and I dedicate time to these things. Like, you have to have regular, consistent periods of time where you say, no, this is dedicated to actually checking up on what's important.
Yep, 100%. I mean, we look at our finances regularly.
Have to.
As just part of our business maintenance. See where we're at, see where we're going, make sure everything looks the way it should. We catch each other's errors before they become problems.
How many times have you talked to a business and they're in the e-commerce system or they're in Shopify or whatever, and they are not comfortable using the reporting or analytics tools in Shopify?
Almost all of them.
All of them. And it's like, that's where all of the information is. So yes, you got to spend time in your products, and you have to spend time in the collections on the home. You have to do all of that work too, but some of that stuff doesn't necessarily feel like work because it can be fun and creative, and you can play with it, and the numbers can kind of seem boring.
Yeah.
But the numbers are equally, if not more important, to everything else. So those reports are exactly like the dashboards. You need to be familiar with them, and based on your business, you should have. You should know what reports you need and when you should be looking at them.
So, bringing this conversation back to the article and then everything that happened with the post offices and Fujitsu, based on Fujitsu's handling of the scandal, would you work with that software provider? I know it's a tough question.
Listen, I would not.
Interesting.
I would choose not to. There's a lot of factors that go into me saying that I'm going to make a vast variety of assumptions. There's a few things. I don't know how a problem goes on for 17 years, say 15 or 16 or 17 years, say 16, potentially 17 years. After the first one or after the first few, there should have been an inquiry. So if this was an isolated incident and Aron and I were concerned about a theft within the business, so I'm assuming from the article that the claim was that there was a theft. If I was suspecting someone of stealing something from my business, I would be making an inquiry and I'd be finding out the truth of it, and I would really be understanding that. Now, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. This clearly happened more than once over 16 or 17 years. So at some point, there has to be responsibility across the board. And I would fault a few people in this. Like the employees were failed monumentally.
Oh yeah,
here,
100%.
So at some level, the service provider has to take accountability, which is Fujitsu. At some point, the company itself, so in this case, the UK government, which runs the post office, has to take accountability. This isn't, the Crown, the Crown is the people running the courts have to kind of take it. There was innocent people that were wrongly. So for that reason, the companies, make mistakes. Now, if they were going to try and make those people whole and really try and salvage their reputation and say, you know what, we're a big fan of, you got to own your mistakes. That's when your customer service really gets tested. It's not, what's the saying? Calm seas don't make skillful sailors. I want to see how they would handle this, and that would really bring to light going, is this a company that now I know that when it hits the fan, are they, and that goes back to Aron's initial point going, how do you evaluate software? Well, what does their customer service look like?
Yeah.
And I don't know. So if it's I don't know, I have to say no.
And this is where, if nothing else, I've been really impressed by how Patterson, who's in charge of the UK branch, has handled the situation.
Now he's done so he himself is showing, and that's the last line there, I'll repeat it everyone, I think there's a moral obligation for the company to contribute, and that's what Patterson told UK lawmakers during a public hearing. Now great, that's one individual at the company, that is the right response. Whether the company decides to do anything or not is obviously out of Patterson's control, but That is showing
But
progress. That's
as a
showing.
spokesperson for the company,
Yep.
to say we have a moral obligation, those are just like really big words
Yep.
coming from a corporation in 2024. Like, how often do you see a company?
Use the word moral. Period.
Yeah, well, or
Obligation.
There was
Yes.
there was
Obligation to shareholders is all the time. It's the moral bit that it's more than the obligation bit for me.
Well, but so there was a joke in Daredevil season 1 where the bad guys corporation says we feel a non-binding moral obligation to make this right.
Oh, a non-binding more, yes.
And you know, the joke obviously is that the moral obligation being hedged by the legalese doesn't mean anything. So for this corp to come out and say, no, we're morally obligated to contribute to making people whole for this colossal screw up, it shows a level of integrity that I'm not used to from large tech providers.
No, I'm not. And 29 billion is a large tech provider. Are they the biggest? No, but they're big.
And so I think while it's easy to damn a company for...
I'm not doing that.
I'm not accusing you of that, but I think
Yeah.
where it's easy to damn a company for having glitches in their software and for how their handling of that, I don't know enough details about the situation.
No.
I don't know how much of this was on the UK government and the post offices versus how much of this was on Fujitsu.
Yeah.
But taking their response now at face value, I wouldn't want to demonize a company that takes responsibility for their colossal mistakes over a company that, you know, doesn't have a history of mistakes and is untested.
There's other. We can find many similar stories to this, whether it be a payment processor going down peak season. Well, there was a scandal, what you would call it. I think it was with a ticketing system, so that tickets to concerts weren't going out. We had a previous employee negatively affected by that, where there was a lot of planning, everything going in. Now all the ticketing for thousands of concert tickets now is no longer available. That happened a few years ago. It happens all the time. And when technology fails, which it will, like you can almost count on it, and to the degree and seriousness, it depends, but like it will fail.
And so, I mean, ultimately, the point is you shouldn't be judging companies based on does their software screw up sometimes. You should be judging them based on how they respond to it.
Yep.
Now, that being said, in this case, lives were lost. And so if you wanted to take the stance that I would never work with anyone involved ever again,
It's hard to argue.
I wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue.
Like,
I couldn't. Yeah. Especially if you actually knew someone and there was like really.
Whether you know them or not. Like,
Yeah,
morally
like, you're
speaking,
gonna-
I
you're
think
gonna-
that's a perfectly fine line in the sand to draw. So I like that you brought it back down to some more like commonplace examples.
Yeah.
One that stands out to me is data security. Is like how many password managers are there that have had data breaches over the years?
There's tons.
I wouldn't tell people not to use a password manager because
Right.
even though sometimes they get data breaches, you're still more secure with a password manager than you are leaving sticky notes on your monitors.
100%.
And you can learn a lot from how a company responds to a data breach, and it shouldn't necessarily be enough to write them off as a company that you wouldn't be willing to work with in the future.
Yeah, they just need to show you what they're made of at the end of the day after the bad thing happens.
Yeah.
And that's true of a lot of things in life. So, shall we move on?
Let's do it. Speaking of corporate responsibility,
Oh ho ho!
I'll leave us
Segue.
to this one.
Segue.
Google quietly updates Chrome's incognito warning in wake of tracking lawsuit.
It's funny how those lawsuits do that, eh?
Weeks after agreeing to settle a lawsuit that accused Google of illegally tracking browsing activity, even after users activated Chrome's incognito mode, the company has quietly updated how the browser describes its private browsing feature. The updated text, spotted by MS Power User, can be found in the latest Canary build of Google Chrome, version 122.0.625.1.0. Here's the updated text, emphasis added. Others who use this device won't see your activity, so you can browse more privately. This won't change how data is collected by websites you visit and the services they use, including Google. Downloads, bookmarks, and reading list items will be saved. And there's a link to learn more. In contrast, here's the text Chrome's current stable version shows when you open a new incognito tab. Now you can browse privately, and other people who use this device won't see your activity. However, downloads, bookmarks, and reading list items will be saved. We'll learn more later. However, the bullets beneath the incognito notice remain unchanged. These point out that browsing activity might still be visible to websites you visit, your employer or school, and your internet service provider. This is a big deal. I think there's a lot of people, and this is what led to the lawsuit, assuming that incognito mode and private browsing means that, get this, your browsing will be private.
Do you mean words mean things?
Words mean things.
The words that you use have the meanings of the words?
Yep.
Yeah. Big time. Big time. Wild, huh? What did Google change a few years ago from "Don't be evil" to?
Oh, I don't know what their new motto is, but yeah, they dropped "Don't be evil" a while ago.
Don't be evil.
First discussion topic: what does incognito mode actually do?
It's a great question. I don't use it a whole lot unless I'm testing things. To not bring in a bunch of, and from what I believe is bringing in a bunch of my previous cookies into a search. And that could be completely wrong because that's not really my field.
No, you're on the right track. So incognito mode, what does it actually do? In essence, incognito mode, and this depends a little bit on the browser you're using because different browsers have different versions of incognito mode and they handle things a little bit differently. But in essence, incognito mode turns off cookies. So you're going to get a fresh browsing experience every time, not relying on data that's been saved to cookie files on your computer. It's going to turn off your search tracking in your browser so that you won't be able to auto-complete something you've looked for when you type into the address bar. It's going to turn off some basic scripts in some cases. You won't be able to access certain scripts on certain web pages. I've seen that before. That's the gist of it. So it's taking a lot of the personalization features that are baked into your usual experience with the internet these days and turning those off as long as that tab is open, or as long as you're acting within that tab, so that you can reap the benefits of interacting with the internet without all of those features affecting your browsing experience. What that actually achieves has varying practical implications. I think the most classic example is if you're looking up something on your personal internet that you would like to remain private, you don't want someone else who's using that computer to stumble onto.
Yeah, so in practical terms, if you're shopping for an engagement ring and you don't want your partner to know that you're going to be popping the question soon, and you don't want a bunch of, now you've made 5 searches and you don't want a bunch of, advertisements hitting your browser for things.
That's actually...
Does that not protect?
You're misunderstanding it there. So that's what this article is about.
Go.
So the difference would be if you're searching for engagement rings and you're using incognito mode, you don't have to worry about your partner logging onto the computer, typing
ENG, and then engagement ring pops up
into the address bar. Okay. But Google is still tracking information on you. Your ISP is still tracking information on you. The sites you interact with are still tracking information on you. So say you log into Amazon Prime while you're looking for engagement rings on Amazon because you've decided that that's the place to buy engagement rings.
Sure.
The Amazon is still going to track your buying behavior through your account login, even though they're not being fed that data necessarily by your browser. So even though there's not
that is the big misconception. So there you go.
The data is still being passed on the website. So as soon as you log into your user account on Amazon, they can see that it's you.
Yes. If you're in, yes.
And even if you're not logged in, they could be potentially pulling data off of your IP address.
They're going to try a way to match it and try and find out.
Right. It's there's still tools companies can use to associate data with your buying behavior. So like if you start looking for engagement rings and you're in an incognito tab, you may very well start getting ads for engagement rings in the near future. It's just not going to show directly in your
search bar or
like
your
saved
preload per searches. Yeah.
Which is really all it's limiting is information that is saved to your computer about your browsing
which
habits.
is really not private or incognito by any definition.
So that point being made, how can users protect themselves from tracking, if at all?
Yeah. So my expertise on this is fairly limited. So I will default. So like I get hammered with VPN ads.
Sure.
I get hammered with VPN. I don't think you could watch a podcast nowadays and not get one of the top 4 biggest VPNs that protect your data.
NordVPN, and then there's one other.
There's Nord, there's Express, VP. There's like 4 of them, and they're they are going to reroute your essentially.
Even that doesn't make your browsing totally private. It helps. It helps, but a VPN can be subpoenaed, and if they're subpoenaed, they can be forced to pass on your information.
Okay.
So it depends on what country they're located in. To some extent, it depends on how your data is encrypted. A virtual private network, what it actually is quite literal. It's a private network that's been created virtually instead of physically. So the physical version would be, I go and I take a Ethernet cable and I plug it from my laptop into your laptop, and we create a network
connection.
We create a local area network through our devices. So if we wanted to go to a LAN party and all play multiplayer video games in one room, we could do that with our private network that we created. A virtual private network does basically the same thing, but remotely. There's this long cable running through the internet from my computer to another computer somewhere else, and then the searching happens off of that computer. So the information packets are delivered to one, and then through that long pathway to mine. Well, it means that the searching that's happening is still, that data is still associated with that second computer in the line, and your computer is still connected to that computer as well. And you can make this more complicated by adding more and more and more different computers in the chain. But at the end of the day, if you're interacting online, that information is still trackable to some extent. Consider for a moment, if you're paying for your VPN with your credit card, it's going to be very easy for any government entity who is looking for your data to go and connect your credit card to that VPN and then subpoena that VPN for whatever information they're looking for. So in a practical sense, you shouldn't be doing anything online that would require that level of privacy anyways.
Not using the dark web on the regular?
Well, no. I mean, there's just not any good reason to.
How do you buy your groceries? Seriously. So So how can users protect themselves from trafficking, if at all?
So incognito mode isn't going to do anything for you. A VPN will help a little bit. In the modern age, I don't really think that you can. I don't think that there is a solid way to prevent yourself from tracking. Because like if you own a smartphone, I'm sorry, look at your licensing agreements.
Oh yeah, everywhere you go.
Your provider has access to your data. All of your social media services have access to your data. The random apps you're installing that have nothing, that you're not putting your personal information into directly, could also be tracking. Like it's wide open.
You're part of it now. You're a little cog in a very big wheel. Yeah.
So, it depends a little bit on what you're doing. If you work in a field where data security is more important, if you work
in government,
legal, healthcare, you should be using a virtual private network if there's any kind of remote work happening. Anyone who's doing remote work should be using a company device that is closely monitored. They shouldn't be using personal devices for anything. You can run your own VPN using like actual physical servers in your location if you want to get really secure.
This is very odd stuff, so you'd be running a very specific. I don't want to say that like if you're a small business or even a medium-sized business that this is necessary. It's very specific to the use case.
It's specific to the industries that need it. If your data is super sensitive, if you've got the next billion-dollar software idea and you're worried about a competitor in the space hacking your servers and stealing it, well, first of all, they're probably not going to. But if you really needed to be sure of that, just have a physical server that is air-gapped, so it doesn't have a connection to the wider internet. People have to access it in person.
The terminal, yeah.
That's going to be the most secure thing. More realistically, most companies aren't going to need that. If you're really worried about how your data is stored, look for a hosting provider that is in country. So it's very common for companies in the legal and healthcare fields to require their web hosts be located
within their host country. Yep. Very common.
So those are some steps that you can take that are going to help with your general data security. But in terms of like your personal information being out there on the internet, it's out there.
It's out there.
Yeah.
And there's a really good chance you put it on Facebook 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Don't make it any worse for yourself than it needs to be. Like, you probably shouldn't be going and signing up for DNA testing kits or going and like reading your biometric data into cloud services. I know there was that one company who we talked about in the last stream.
Wild.
Offering cryptocurrency for scanning your eyeball into their database. Stay away from.
How much would they have to pay me for me to scan my eyeball into your database?
Right? Like,
what is that database for?
So just what can you do to protect your data? Generally speaking, not much, but just don't make it any easier for people to find than it needs to be. Don't give it away for free.
Yeah.
What do we use incognito mode for, though? Like,
you probably use it more than I do
as a company. Well, it's funny you say that. I think you actually use it more than I do, for really silly reasons.
I have to use it, so I use it for banking.
Yeah.
I use it for banking.
And you use it for banking because there's some kind of cookie issue on your computer that is blocking you from logging in through your primary
so I use it for banking.
web browser. Which is like not a slam against like you and your technology. It's just,
the banking we do is so fine. It's not like I've got the bank.
No, it's just crazy that we're running into that issue in the first place. So like if you're running into like weird issues with a website that you're using and you don't know what's going on, you might find that it works fine in an incognito mode. That's like one of my first troubleshooting steps when I run into something unexpected. I use it all the time for testing websites that we work on.
It's mostly testing.
Yeah, it's very common that I'm logged into a WordPress site and I'm making changes and I want to make sure they display properly to a user that's not logged in, because with some of the software that we use, that has been a problem in the past. We use Oxygen Page Builder and we've had issues where I would build something in the back end and as long as I'm logged in, it looks fine. And then as soon as you view the site not logged in, your templates don't load. There's some kind of permissions issue. And so I often will open up a website in incognito mode just to get a fresh perspective on it and see how it looks from an end user's experience. The same thing can be true for testing like email marketing pop-ups. A lot of the time, or like your email sign-up will be set to not display for X amount of time after first visit, after someone's closed out of it. If I have closed out of it once, but now I've changed something and I want to see how it looks and I'm still in that window, I'll open up that site in an incognito window in order to check that out. Yeah. So there's lots of like
testing
legitimate uses for an incognito window where you're trying to take advantage of the fact that it's not storing cookies. It's not storing your login information.
Just the word incognito is going to throw so many people off because it's not incognito. It's just like fresh browsing session.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's like it doesn't import any of the previous information from my previous browsing session into this one so that I don't get any weird, like it already knows my password or it knows it's, it's like I want to experience a fresh, especially when I'm trying to recreate a new user experience.
There are varying degrees. I have seen private browsing modes that will turn off some JavaScript, for example. Okay. And that will have an impact on data collection to some extent. It's not going to be incognito.
You wouldn't brand it as incognito?
I would not. Well,
I would not brand it as incognito. I would not. That would not be an accurate fit for the term.
Right. But it's going to be less fully transparent.
Correct.
Than the incognito modes people are mostly familiar with.
So without I do want to speculate a little bit here because we'll end up going back to this in a future stream. What do you think the outcome of this lawsuit will be because of what they've done? And then we'll just have a gentleman's bet for when this one comes to fruition. We'll come back to it. What do you think?
Nothing's going to happen.
Nothing's going to happen. That was going to be my bet. that was going to be my
I
bet
believe
too.
they settled. So like
Okay.
a little bit of money changed hands. Don't quote me on that. And Google changed the text description a little bit. It's not going to stop people from using incognito mode the way they use it now, and it's not going to stop Google from collecting people's data.
Correct.
So
Before we move on, I do have to shout out to the updated text spotted by Microsoft or MS Power User, which is maybe my now favorite username that I've seen online in a while. Because who the heck is Microsoft Power User? Because that is awesome.
Is that a user or is that a website?
I don't know. Spotted by Microsoft Power User. I don't know if it's a user or a website. This is from The Verge. Again, we'll post this on there. I saw that. I thought it was a user. I wasn't sure if that was a...
No, MS Power User is a website.
It's a website. Okay.
Which is what
Because whoever user's name that is awesome. Because
it's a website. It's not a username.
there we go.
So,
Last topic.
Last
Look
topic.
at that. We're getting through it.
and I think one of the most relevant for our audience, I'll share screen again as we go through this. Report. Canadian organizations face barriers to digital adoption and transformation. This is, as I mentioned, one of the ones that came out late last year. This is the first chance we've had to talk about it. Deloitte's new report, which is based on original research, including a survey of 804 Canadian senior business leaders, examines the ongoing challenges organizations face across 3 pillars: access, participation, and ecosystem. The report makes practical and actionable recommendations for leaders of organizations and policymakers on how to work together to ensure a more equitable future. Some of the survey findings include 2/3, 67% of survey respondents describe the cost of software licenses and subscriptions as somewhat or very challenging, with 1 in 4 describing it as a great challenge. 56% say choosing between competing software vendors or cloud service providers is somewhat or very challenging. A majority, 58% of survey respondents, say uncertainty about which technologies would be most beneficial to the organization is somewhat or very challenging. 67% of organizations with over 10 employees say hiring digitally skilled workers is somewhat or very challenging, which rises to 70% for medium, 100 to 499 employees, and large organizations, 500 employees or more. 59% of organizations permit employees to use personal mobile devices for work, while almost 1/3 permit employees to use personal computers or laptops for work, increasing attack surface for cyber criminals. Meanwhile, 20% of Canadian business leaders surveyed say their organization has not invested in any cybersecurity or software or applications.
I kind of don't even like that going out into the world because now they know, like, hey, Canada, come look at Canadian businesses.
Some of the recommendations from the report include: connect every organization with the right digital tools. By creating a digital investment strategy clearly linking digital investments to business objectives, employers can participate in the digital economy as they see fit. Attending conferences, trade shows, summits, and seminars will help employers address knowledge gaps around digital solutions and keep them on the pulse of what digital tools are available in the marketplace. Participating in peer networks and industry groups are ways for leaders to learn more from one another and share best practices. Ensure organizations have the skills to thrive in the digital economy. Organizations, especially smaller ones and nonprofits that are facing challenges finding and retaining digital talent, need to think strategically about their talent value proposition and how it can speak better to digital and tech talent, including by being purpose/mission forward. Employers can leverage massive open online courses for on-demand learning paired with informal learning experiences, for example, lunch and learns, mentorships, work shadowing arrangements, to round out low-cost upskill programs. Participating in industry advisory groups and working with partners to create industry training hubs are ways organizations can catch up, keep up, or thrive in the digital era. And then build a secure and inclusive digital ecosystem. government policy decisions that mandate tech enablement, such as e-invoicing and open banking, can be real force multipliers for digital adoption and specifically accelerate small business tech adoption. By designating data protection and privacy champions and educating the workforce on data protection and related vendor management practices, employers can ensure the organization is staying abreast of the latest in the regulatory environment. There's a lot here.
Yes, there's a lot
This is here, and this is condensed from Deloitte's full press release on the report, which is condensed from the report itself, which I highly recommend going and reading.
The report of the report of the report.
It's quite interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And they speak in quite a great deal of depth about what's going on in Canada from a digital adoption standpoint. So for discussion topics, my first question is, what are our initial thoughts on Deloitte's recommendations?
So, like right off the hop, based on those recommendations, those pillars of recommendations, when they say the biggest challenges were access, participation, and ecosystem, yeah, wild. Like, just like I couldn't agree more on those. We see those every day. Access, the primary access, the problem that I see with the access is like it's money, and it's also the talent to implement. It's they don't have. I think the participation is people want to do it. There's pressure to do it. I know COVID put a lot of pressure on for people to adopt things like teleconferencing, Zoom particularly, getting in like definitely push businesses forward there. They had to, they were forced to. But when there's no true force, the participation and access is a lot more limited. So
that's a great. So for me, the relationship between like hammering home the need and encouraging adoption is crucial, and one of the main areas where I think Deloitte's recommendations miss the mark. One of the first things they recommend is attending conferences, trade shows, and summits to learn about technology. How many business owners have you worked with?
None.
That are, number one, going to take the time to do that?
Who do you send to the trade show? You send your marketing, your sales team to the trade show? I don't know, especially when the business gets a little bit bigger. How many, is it the CTO? Is it the CEO? Is it the major directors that are showing up to the trade show? No, they're not. Those aren't the...
Even if they were at the trade show, is that trade show going to have useful information on what technology they should be adopting?
No, it's going to have a bunch of vendors trying to sell software.
Right. Well, if any, because like you have to pick and choose which trade shows you're going to as well, because trade shows are expensive.
Yeah.
So, are you going to attend a trade show in your industry with a ton of sales opportunities?
Or are you going
to go and attend a tech trade show and hope to get value out of that by sending, your most relevant people to go check it out? Maybe. If you're in the tech space and you're already very tech forward, but for your average small or medium sized enterprise,
I'm not sending anyone to a trade show to go and book 5 demos on POS systems.
No, not a chance.
Not a chance. It's just not. Why I can do that outside of a trade show. I can contact 5 POS providers and say, "Are you interested in my business?" No.
We talked about evaluating software earlier. We're going to talk to software companies. We're going to get great remote demos, and it's going to be way more time efficient. It's going to tell us more about those companies than interacting with their salespeople at a trade show. So this is my second problem with the recommendation is even if you take the time to go to these trade shows and look for new technology that you can introduce to your business, are you going to be successful? If you are not already a highly technical user, are you going to learn anything from talking to a bunch of salespeople at a trade show about technology? Probably not. Some of these things I think have a little bit more value. So like participating in peer networks, absolutely.
I think that's not outside of tech. Period. That is just a good idea. It's a good business practice.
Yeah.
Period. For all the reasons. I can't. Why would you not want to be surrounded by more peers in your industry?
You will get value out of associating with other successful people doing the same thing you're doing.
Yes.
One of those things that you can get is recommendations on better software. Because if there is a piece of software that you're using and you hate it, there's probably other people in this industry that have the same problems, and there's probably a handful of other people in the industry that have solved those problems and have software solutions or technology solutions that they're much happier with. So like peer groups, absolutely.
Now I want to go back one when about the Deloitte, say, the lunch and learns, the conferences and everything. You should be able to turn to some resource in your business already. So like, it's very common for you to reach back to your accountants and say, hey, do you have someone that you would recommend for X? And they would say, yeah. And by the way, they do webinars on every, once a month, and then you're going to attend a webinar, so maybe not a conference or a trade show, but you're going to attend a webinar, and they're going to talk about the importance of X, Y, and Z, and that's maybe going to start you down the pathway to consider investing in something. So like, yes, there, but as far as they go to say here, attending a conference and a webinar, low cost, low commitment, don't need to send, not going to impact your day too much. You can have a sandwich and watch a webinar.
Deloitte goes on to make a ton of other recommendations. They talk about, ways to attract talent. Some of it is like mission focused. I think the buzz I'm hearing in 2024 is that talent is more attracted to lifestyle than mission. Pay people well, give them time off, give them good perks. You're going to get better quality employees.
Yep. There's one here that I want to hammer home. It's by creating a digital investment strategy, clearly linking digital investments to business objectives. That should be happening all the time.
Yep.
Like outside of software or whatever, it's like you need to link everything to what your business objectives are. It's why we talked about this with the content for putting this online. What is the objective of the business? Are we here to teach people? What are we here to do? It needs to be linked to the business objective, so that way we can actually measure to see if this is working. So, I mean, you can factor that in a million ways, but at the same time, if you're just implementing for the sake of implementing or because the competitors are doing something, what objective is that helping you solve? We as a marketing agency, we absolutely have to hammer out, if there's going to be a line item on a bill, what is that doing for you?
Yeah.
And how is that a good thing? Because that's going to paint the picture on how that thing should be implemented, who needs to use it, what actually it needs to do. We're going to get buy-in from people. We can create a story around that and get employee involvement and stakeholder involvement. If you don't have that, I'm glad it's bullet 1 on here, or sub 1A, because I don't know how much else you can do without clearly linking it to a business objective.
I'm glad you're hammering this point home, because this is a conversation we have with clients all the time.
Yeah.
Often we are approached to implement digital initiatives that have not been linked to a business goal.
I would say that happens weekly.
Yeah.
Weekly.
People want search engine optimization because someone told them they needed it.
Yeah.
They don't know what it does. They haven't figured out how it's going to move the needle for their business. Their website is missing a conversion mechanism, so anyone who actually lands on their website isn't going to become a customer anyways, but they've heard they need SEO, so they go out looking for a service provider who can implement it. So like having an actual strategy rather than chasing tactics is a great way to avoid shiny object syndrome and actually start moving the needle for your business. Now, further into their recommendations, Deloitte starts talking about how the government can address some of the digital adoption challenges. They take an interesting stance. So they encourage government policy decisions to mandate tech enablement, such as like mandated e-invoicing and open banking.
That's one of my least favorite words.
Is mandate?
Mandate.
Yeah.
I don't like that word, period. I've never come across that word. I went, thank goodness they're mandating that. Very rarely.
I think there are more effective ways for the Canadian government to drive digital adoption. And I think they are doing a great job, actually.
They are. And guess what? They're not through mandates. They're through incentives.
That's right. So that brings us to our next discussion point. What is the Canadian government doing to improve digital adoption for SMEs?
Goodness. What are they not doing right now? So there's a bunch of grant programs out. So I'm going to paint a little bit of a picture here. Through COVID, it's what started out was Digital Main Street. Digital Main Street was a program, I think it was started in 2018-ish. could have been a little bit earlier, 2018, and the goal there was to bring tech into business improvement areas all across Ontario. I believe it started in Ontario, and then it spread out, and now it's across a variety of provinces and territories. And the goal was the downtown cores of businesses typically have a very hard time sustaining themselves, and a key area of focus. And the government allotted dollars for those key business areas, digital Main Street businesses. If they met certain qualifications, they had access to funding and education online, and to a digital service squad of people that were local individuals that could actually go to these businesses and help them. And there was time allotments, and that was a very successful program. And I think we're in the 4th or 5th year of it now. And there was
so the digital Main Street has a long history. It really exploded during COVID when there was like a real push to modernize businesses. But it started back in 2016.
2016, okay.
2016. So now it was just in Toronto in 2016.
Yes.
They were like, it started with the Toronto business improvement area trying to improve their Main Street businesses' digital footprints. And then they slowly capitalized on the success they had locally and rolled that out wider and wider and wider, to the point where when we got involved, it was across Ontario.
Yes.
And then I believe it's in a couple of other provinces now as well.
It's in Alberta, it's in BC, it's out east. I think it's in, I think it might be in the Yukon. It's in there, some territories as well.
And so this is one of Canada's government programs that incentivize businesses to educate themselves about technology, and then provides funding to help them actually implement some of the technology. Now, Digital Main Street was a microgrant program.
Yeah.
So is a microgrant program. I believe it's still around in one shape or another. It's been evolving. Yeah. But Digital Main Street, it's microgrants that help businesses get small projects off the ground. So $2,500. It's not enough to get a full website built, but it can.
No, it's some kicker money, and that's where I'm painting the picture. So they learned a lot from that program. They spent a lot of money. They put a lot of dollars to work. They employed a lot of people. A lot of those dollars actually made it into the hands of small business owners. It was great. And then that ended up partially creating and partially giving the information into CDAP, which is the Canadian Digital Adoption Program.
That's a big program. And
that's the current big
powerhouse behind Canada's digital growth.
Yeah, and that still has a small business stream. So in that first bit of Digital Main Street, there wasn't really enough juice per squeeze for a larger organization to get involved. So even if you were doing $5 million a year in revenue, that program really there wasn't enough value there for you. There wasn't enough money and time, and the expertise wasn't there for you to actually want to jump in and get involved with that. So their need still existed, and now the Canadian Digital Adoption Program came out with a solution to that need. So they have a larger business stream, and then they still have a smaller business stream. So they haven't left anyone out here.
So without referring back to the conversation on Digital Main Street, how does CDAP work? Yeah,
so CDAP, it works. There are two streams. I'll talk about the big stream first. So the big stream, so if you're a qualifying business, you have to meet some qualifications. You can find those online. We'll make sure we put those up there. But very briefly, you need $500,000 in revenue. You need to be a corporation, Canadian owned, between 1 and 499 employees. There's some finer details. You can't be a franchise.
Yep.
You
Must
can't
be a for-profit.
For-profit. You can't be like an MLM. You got to be. And there's just specific industries that are restricted too. So you can't be selling tobacco, firearm, things like that. So great. If you're a business that qualifies for that, you're entitled to you're eligible to receive $15,000 to work with a registered and approved CDAP advisor. So there is an advisor portal. The government has put together and done a bunch of vetting around digital advisors. So there's a whole bunch of people across Canada, it's a federal program across Canada that are digital advisors. You have $15,000 to work with them. You pay them, you get a refund from the government. Great. So it's essentially, it offsets a lot of your costs. So it offsets 90% of your costs with them up to $15,000. So it's a very healthy consulting budget, very, very healthy consulting budget. What that's designed to do, that $15,000 has to be used to create a digital adoption plan, like exactly what the program's called. You have to create a plan, and that plan is designed to bring new technologies into the business. And right back to the beginning, they must be in line, clearly linking those new digital investments to those business objectives. So working with that advisor, the objectives you can end up creating together. But essentially, what are we trying to achieve, and how can tech help you achieve that? Cool. On top of that, I mean, we as a company, we look at a bunch of your existing technologies too, and understand if those can be improved.
That's
required, yeah. And there's a very good. We're always finding ways that you can use your existing tools better. So there's some low-hanging fruit. There's some bigger projects. Yes. Beyond that, there is a big shiny interest-free loan with an asterisk. It's up to $100,000. That's based on revenue and ability to repay. But there's a big interest-free loan that you can capture. You don't have to. It's a if you would like it. And then there's a wage subsidy, about $7,300 wage subsidy for a net new hire. They've got to be at arm's reach. They've got to be a permanent resident, Canadian citizen, or legal refugee, someone with refugee status. So full-time or part-time work, there's some requirements there. They can't be your son or daughter, can't hire a family member. Cool. Yeah, we want to make it fair. And then that's big stream one. There's a lot to go in there. It's a very broad program. It's right across the board. There's not really a hardware component, so like you can't use any of that fund to go and like buy a new phone. Right. You know, you can't go and shop around for iPads and things like that. Even if you're using them for a POS system, there's rules. There's rules.
That's the smaller stream. The larger stream, you could use some of the loan funds.
You could use the loan funds. Yes, you could. Required. There's the smaller stream. So the larger stream, if you qualify for the larger stream, you will also qualify for the smaller stream. So it's not an and or, it's an and, not an or. And the smaller stream is $2,400. There's a lesser revenue requirement. Your revenue has to be at least $30,000 a year. You have to be in business for at least a couple of years, so you can't like start a company tomorrow and gain access to it.
With at least one arm's reach employee.
Yes. And then that stream has different requirements, different objectives. So it's trying to help you get started. So they're just different things to look into.
It's a micro grant.
It's another micro grant.
The goal is to take some of the bite out of kicking off a new technology.
And I got nothing bad to say about either. They're throwing it right down the middle on this. It's a very cool program. We've helped quite a few businesses capture it. Yeah. And it's we will say at face value, it seems absolutely too good to be true. We hear this all the time. It's like, what do you mean? Like, what? How do you? Why would I be getting all of these benefits? I would be wary of what you read online. Like I would talk to a few different CDAP advisors, feel them out. Yep. One of the biggest things we get asked is there is no, out of the initial $15,000 for consulting, there is no implementation dollars. You're not, a CDAP advisor is not allowed to go into your business and use that money to fix your website or to start posting on your social media or to help you upload products on your e-commerce. No, there's no implementation. Please read the fine print. You can get in some serious trouble. Yep. So stick to the rules, color within the lines. It's like, if it feels like you're not doing something right, consult someone else. The rules will actually, the fine print is like surprisingly easy to read. Yep. They've done a good job with it. It's not like your terms of service on your phone.
I would say the Canadian government has never done a better job
at this one. Yeah,
encouraging businesses to adopt new technologies.
Yeah. And they're really putting the dollars there.
Yeah,
they're putting the dollars there.
It's phenomenal.
And it's even more so now because when this program started, we're a few years in, interest rates were already low. Yeah. So like an interest-free loan didn't have the same appeal. And now a few years in, you're going, wow, an interest-free loan is, you can't get that anywhere. That's huge. You cannot get that anywhere. I didn't mention this about the loan. It's a 6-year term, so you're really not forced to pay it back all that fast. There's no payments for the first 12 months, and it's equal over the next 5 years. So like you should, painting with a broad brush, you should have realized an ROI by those technology adoptions long before your loan becomes the full payment becomes due. So they're really allowing you to capture you get your sandwich. You get to have your sandwich today and pay me tomorrow. You're getting all of the value today. Yeah. And then the bill's not due for quite a while.
So any thoughts on the state of digital adoption? Any final thoughts on the state of digital adoption in Canada before we wrap up this stream?
I've got some thoughts. Yeah, it still strikes me as it's strange to see that there is still some resistance. And I don't know if that's fear. I don't know if that's some businesses, we hear a lot like, well, that's just the way we do it. Their change management is a very, very, very big proponent of preventing change, or how do I move a sales team forward? How do I get 15 people in my organization to get to all move in the same direction? I don't want to disrupt their workflow. It's
there's some specific challenges that make things really tough. So like the Deloitte report says 56% say choosing between competing software vendors or cloud service providers is somewhat or very challenging. CDAP doesn't address that.
They do not.
We are like, within, as a CDAP advisor, we are not allowed to recommend specific vendors.
Tools. Correct.
So
vendor agnostic.
Yeah, it's one of the challenging things about the government encouraging digital adoption. They're not able to give businesses some of those tools that they need to actually get in the weeds and make those final decisions.
And rightly so. We wouldn't want to push every single funding dollar towards one technology
absolutely,
and not the other.
Absolutely. But I think
that challenge is still there.
The takeaway is that as a business trying to grow in the digital landscape in 2024, you need to have highly technical people on your team. I think it's crucial to at minimum have one technical person in-house who can champion the adoption of new technologies within your company. Because if you don't have someone whose focus is on upgrading your digital footprint, you're going to put it on the back burner. It's going to be very difficult for you to evaluate technologies, and you're going to have a hard time getting to a place where your technologies are working for you instead of against you.
100%. And then again, on top of that, you're compounding the next thing where it's even harder to find those people, but you need them.
No, if you don't have those people, CDAP can be a great place to start at least putting your technologies into buckets. And then that wage subsidy could be the start of finding some technical staff to put on your team to actually improve your digital footprint.
When one of these topics is how does CDAP work, I won't go into all of it, but within each CDAP plan, you should have an adoption roadmap. It's a requirement of submitting a plan. And that roadmap, although doesn't tell you the name of the tool you need, it should tell you need to do this before this, before this, before this, with some pricing, with some timelines, with some requirements around what skills need to be in the organization for that to be successful. So there's quite a bit of support and guidance so that you don't have to go guess, what do I actually, now I've got this plan, now I've got this strategy, what do I actually do next? It's right in front of you. Like, focus on these things. It's a very collaborative process too.
Yeah.
It is not like especially like, well, I can speak from my experience. It's we don't have a horse in the race. We're trying to make your business better.
Yeah.
So like, it's a lot of listening, a lot of asking questions. You're gonna get sick of, especially working with me, you're gonna get sick of me asking you questions.
Sure.
But the goal there is to challenge your assumptions. The goal there is to understand the business as best you can, understand the challenge, what's worked in the past, what doesn't work anymore. Great. So like, in terms of how CDAP really works, it's like you're gonna have a team actually come in and work with you to solve some of your big burning questions around technology anyways.
For sure.
So
with that,
we'll put all the requirements and the link to apply and whatnot. And of course, if you see this and you want help, you can reach out. But I don't want to scare you off just because it's a federal program. Sometimes people get afraid as soon as there's a federal grant application. I don't want it to seem scary. It's not scary.
I would say it's one of the easiest grant programs to get involved with ever.
45-minute application.
Like,
what do you need to apply? I'll go through this really quick. What do you need?
It's not like Shred.
Oh,
You're
no.
having to do like long form tracking of your activities. Nope. Your application is quick, and then you're into the program working with a digital advisor to actually move the needle.
Yeah. You have to work with a CDAP advisor. It's not like you can work if you've already got a marketing agency or a tech consultant or something. They must be registered in order for you to receive the benefits. So keep that in mind. Very quickly, how to apply. We'll put the website in the link, and what you actually need before you start is the name of your company, the business number, the corporate number, so like the corporate business number. You will need, if you're the owner, you must be the director or owner or a person that appears on your corporate documents in order to start the application. That individual who's actually starting the application needs to have their 2022 tax filing in front of them. The system's going to ask for some numbers to verify your identity. Avoid check. an actual picture of a void check, not just the information on the void check. You'll actually have to upload. That's where the money gets deposited into. It's fairly slick. It's not like institution, branch, account number, so great, plus the check, legal operating name of the business, and mailing address. So like, as a business owner, you probably can find those things and hopefully under 15 minutes. You go to the site, it's going to ask you for your information. 45 minutes later, it will give you your pre-qualification. So it'll, before you spend any money, before you go anything, it will pre-qualify you. So you're never going to make a step in the wrong direction. You're never going to pay someone before you actually get the checkbox on whether you are approved or not. So very, very low risk in terms of even getting started.
Yeah.
So an hour of your time, the pre-approval comes digitally. It's all digital, by the way. There are non-digital options if you need them, but it's pretty smooth. Like I said, I'm trying to even factor, I was thinking about the other day, like what could they do to even make it better? But the application's slick, the portal's slick.
That might be a discussion topic for a future stream.
It's good.
It's like looking back on CDAP, how do we improve that?
That's a great topic. We should be doing that.
Yeah.
How to make CDAP.
Let's come back to that one.
Yeah, I like it. Anything else you want to add about CDAP before we wrap up?
I think we can wrap up this stream.
I like it.
So with that, thank you very much for tuning in. It's been 2H Media. I'm Aron Rich. This is Matthew Herschel. And
see you next month.
looking forward to it.